Hello everyone, I'm Jim Grimes coming to you live from outside of St. Mary's Medical Center as we continue to track breaking news here in Palm Beach County. Earlier this morning, 2 deputies were brought here to the hospital, both of them pronounced dead. A third remains in the hospital. We'll have an update on all of that. Let's take you to where all of this took place. This happened in LOXAHATCHEE along Southern Boulevard. That's near the Arden Clubhouse, which is a subdivision over there. This is video from the scene taken earlier this morning, and you can see that crumpled, crushed SUV against the guardrail, and the rest of that wreckage from a single motorcycle that is toppled over the road. We have live coverage. We're going to take you back to the scene live. We'll also have more from the hospital here, but let's first go to our Mike Magnoli, who's standing outside the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, where just within the hour there was a news conference filling us in on all of the details. And Mike, what have you learned?
Well, Jim, for those of you at home in the audience that are just getting home from work and maybe seeing this for the first time, let's set the scene for you a little bit. There was a woman in this SUV. She was apparently trying to pass a vehicle in front of her in the center lane, and according to the sheriff, she overcompensated, went into the right lane and the right shoulder and struck 3 deputies on motorcycles. The sheriff explained a little bit more about the circumstances, about why those guys were on the side of the road. One of the motorcycle deputies was having some kind of mechanical problem with his bike, thought maybe that the battery was dead. So then he got on the radio, called for assistance. 2 more motorcycle deputies responded to his location. They were waiting for a jump start. There was also another PBSO vehicle en route to that location when this terrible accident unfolded. Sheriff Bradshaw described that for us earlier. Want to cue up that sound for you now. Here's Sheriff Ric Bradshaw.
It's a bad crash. We are jointly investigating this with FHP. Our traffic homicide division is working it in conjunction with them. It's going to be an extensive investigation. Preliminarily right now, and there's more tests to be done. It doesn't look like the driver was impaired. It just looks like one of those things where she overcompensated and got off the road.
The sheriff not releasing the identity of that driver. We don't know who that woman was at the wheel. And he is also not releasing the names of these 3 deputies. 2 of them did not survive this, one of them in ICU, but reportedly in stable condition. The sheriff's office says they don't want to release that information about who these deputies are at this time. He talked also, Jim, very poignantly about the unpredictable nature of the job that law enforcement has, and that every day there's the risk of something like this happening. Listen.
Law enforcement, public safety, and the military are the only professions. When you leave the house and kiss your family goodbye, that might be the last time. And here's the example of it. I'm sure that these deputies, not in their wildest dreams, thought that this was going to happen to them today. So, when a deputy dies, a piece of the community dies with them. It's tough.
The sheriff told us that he is taking some time off. He said he was going to do that after the election. That's why you saw him there on a Zoom. But he plans to be back in Palm Beach County as early as tomorrow. And the sheriff's office tells me that plans already in the works for the funerals for the 2 motorcycle deputies that didn't make it. And we're going to have a lot more probably as the newscast progresses and the night progresses. We could learn those names. Jim, for now, I'm going to send it back over to you.
Mike, any reason to believe there's going to be a further investigation into how this accident took place? I mean, is there any possibility of criminal charges?
That question was asked here, Jim. The sheriff's office says it doesn't look like there's going to be any criminal charges at this time. I can also report that this driver, this woman in this SUV, stopped right away. She was cooperative with law enforcement when they responded to the scene. Sounds like a terrible accident, but preliminarily, no indication that there was any kind of driver impairment. But as you heard, I believe we've already reported that it's Florida's Highway Patrol that will take the lead on this investigation, not the sheriff's office, Jim.
All right, our Mike Magnoli joining us live from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, where that news conference wrapped up about 40 minutes ago. From the moment that the call started coming into the 911 center, we're told that rescue crews had scrambled to get to that scene. As it turns out, they airlifted those victims, the two deputies, 3 deputies in all, to the hospital here at St. Mary's. CBS 12's Al Peffley is joining us, and Al got a chance to come out here earlier. Al, we know now that 2 of the deputies were pronounced dead shortly after arriving here. What about the 3rd deputy? What do we know?
As far as we know right now, that 3rd deputy went through surgery and is now in intensive care, recovering from the surgery. We'll find out probably more as the night goes on or tomorrow. And Jim, as the word of this tragedy spread, law enforcement officers from all over the area, up and down the coast, came here to St. Mary's to pay their respects and to pray for the victims' recovery. Doctors and nurses rushed out to the choppers carrying the injured deputies, hurrying them into the St. Mary's Trauma Center to start their care as quickly as possible. Each of them aware in cases like this, every second counts. The street on the east side of St. Mary's was closed, clearing the way for officers and deputies to arrive from PBSO, West Palm Beach Police, and a growing number of other local agencies who began arriving as the word spread, as did local residents who came to wait and hope for some good news.
I feel terrible for the families of the officers involved. Just keep them in my prayers.
My heart goes out to all the families and everything. It's beautiful to see that all the law enforcement came together to honor their life and their service and everything.
It's heart-wrenching. I was shocked when I seen it.
Officers, deputies, and civilians gathered outside the trauma center entrance, praying and consoling one another. Fellow motorcycle officers from surrounding communities drove up in large numbers to show their support.
It was startling. I have never seen this many officers out like this.
Early this afternoon, a more somber procession left the hospital. Ambulances carrying the bodies of the 2 deputies who perished left St. Mary's under escort on their way to the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's office. 2 helicopters circled overhead, and a group of officers stood at attention, saluting as the motorcade passed by. And the members of law enforcement agencies who came here today share a common bond of service and heartbreak for those whose lives were lost and those who will be spending the holidays, their time, without their loved ones. Jim?
Yeah, you know what, Al, it was an emotional scene out here. You've been covering this kind of thing for years. Were you shocked or surprised by the number of law enforcement vehicles that were out here? By noon, there were at least a couple of hundred.
I can't say that I'm surprised. I've never seen anything quite like that before, but I can't say I'm surprised because when something like this happens, all of these law enforcement officers and first responders pulled together to try to get through this together, to console one another. And as we pointed out, they all have this common bond of service. And when there's a tragedy like this, they all want to be together.
And we saw some of that today, for sure. All right, our Al Peffley joining us out here. We're going to hear more from Al in just a little bit during our newscast, but we want to take you back out to the scene, to where all of this happened. That's at the location at the corner of Southern Boulevard and Lion Country Safari Road. And just steps away from there is our Dylan Huberman, who is joining us with the latest there. I know traffic had been shut down there, Dylan, for almost most of the day. I don't know if it's been reopened or not.
Jim, it's been reopened, but it's been a grim and solemn scene here along Southern Boulevard and LOXAHATCHEE for most of the day, and investigators are still trying to piece together exactly how this tragedy occurred. People that live by the scene stunned by this morning's tragic events. 2 deputies lost their lives and a 3rd is fighting for his life following a brutal crash along Southern Boulevard in LOXAHATCHEE Thursday morning. The deputies were on motorcycles, and resident Josh Muir saw them when he left his nearby community.
I was going eastbound when I drove past the motorcycle cops, and unfortunately the shoulder on the canal side is 6 feet maybe. It's such a small margin.
That margin appears to be where the deadly wreck took place, with an SUV crunched against a guardrail and the bike smashed on the pavement.
It's a disaster. It doesn't look good at all. Feel sorry for who's involved in all that.
They were doing their job, they were It looked like they may have been pulling people over for tickets and whatnot. You know, there was 2 of them that were right on the shoulder, waiting to, you know, get back onto the road, and, you know, came back and the road shut down.
People who live in communities along Southern Boulevard say accidents in this area are a growing problem, but they have never seen something of this magnitude.
There's definitely been a number of accidents on Southern. Nothing to this caliber.
Accidents like this are unfortunately common, not police and not this quantity. What we see is a lot of distracted driving every single day. Any death is a difficult death, but this is very sad and it's avoidable.
Florida Highway Patrol is continuing to investigate this tragedy as they mourn the loss of their law enforcement colleagues. In LOXAHATCHEE and Huberman, CBS 12 News.
Anytime something like this happens, there are certain protocols they put in place. One of them is to lower the flags to half-staff. That's taking place at county buildings, also at the sheriff's headquarters, which, by the way, is also where they transported the 2 fallen officers earlier today. They were loaded into what appeared to be ambulances, and there was this long procession that stretched for seemingly miles. CBS 12's Victoria DeCardenas has more on that procession that left a lot of lumps in a lot of people's throats who were there to see it. Victoria.
Yeah, Jim, it's been obviously a very emotional day for the community, and anybody who's been hearing about this story is probably getting choked up, like you mentioned. I get chills thinking about it. We were speaking to some of the deputies who were helping close Gun Club Road just outside of the sheriff's office headquarters. They said they were all sad and devastated, but really just at a loss for words that 2 of their brothers have fallen. 2 Palm Beach County deputies had their final ride Thursday afternoon to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office headquarters, escorted by the Sheriff's Office and West Palm Beach Fire Rescue. 2 helicopters flew overhead as the fallen deputies were greeted by PBSO personnel, an American flag flying overhead, and members of the U.S. Army with a farewell salute. The somber sounds of bagpipes playing quietly in the background, barely audible over the roar of the motorcade. Sounds that remind us of the bravery, patriotism, and sacrifice deputies display on any given day. And on Thursday, 2 deputies made the ultimate sacrifice, and a 3rd is fighting for their life. Law enforcement from all over the county and along the Treasure Coast coming together to pay their respects, including the Palm Beach County Police Benevolence Association. In a statement to CBS 12 News, the Indian River County Sheriff's Office sent their condolences to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Flowers says he's been in contact with Sheriff Ric Bradshaw and has offered any resources they may need. And Jim, we have been told that members of the Martin County Sheriff's Office are also making their way down here to support Sheriff Bradshaw and the Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy as a whole in whichever way they need. You know, it's going to be a long healing process, not only for the deputies here and the law enforcement community at large, but also for those deputies' families. Reporting live outside of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office headquarters, Victoria DeCardenas. Back to you, Jim.
I'm Jim Grimes. Click like and subscribe buttons if you want to see more stories like this that impact you.